In today's show, it's NBA draft stuff again, and we're talking with Ben Pfeifer of the Prep2Pro podcast. We're looking at Killian Hayes. We're looking at way more players in the NBA draft than him as well, but I'm excited to talk Killian. Michael Bolton.
Let's get to it.
He wants to hear about it as well. Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and I am the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com and at Yahoo Sports Australia. And you can find me on Twitter as always at redrock_bball and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. As I mentioned, we're talking NBA draft today. Ben Pfeifer is going to be joining me. We're going to be talking Killian Hayes, Tyrese Maxey, Obi Toppin, Nesmith, Payton Pritchard, and Paul Reed. So that's enough names. Let's bring in the name, and that is Ben Pfeifer, to get him to talk about these draft prospects with me. And now we do bring in Ben Pfeifer from the Prep2Pro podcast. Ben, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
It's good to have you here. We've been talking with NBA draft people over the last week or so here. Just looking at players that they like more than consensus, players that they like less than consensus, and you're another one in the mix here. So let's start off with some of these players that you are higher on, and this is really exciting for me because I've been big on Killian Hayes for a while. I've had him in my top 3 in most mock drafts. I think I had him at 2 in my last one. I've seen places where he is mocked at 10, 12, 8, 9. I feel like that's ridiculous, but I want to hear your take on Killian Hayes at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's also ridiculous. Like I've got him at top 2 as well, like in a tier with LaMelo. I think he's a fantastic prospect. Certainly should not be going that late as he is. Just, offensively, besides the unbelievable passing, which everyone knows about, which he's always had, has made like significant strides as a scorer and self-creator with improving quite a bit athletically this past year. His change of direction with his handle, his burst, it's all better. It's where he can actually, he's starting to learn how to create for himself a little more. And then, he's extending his off dribble jumper out to 3. He's, known now for his, step backs and some of the pull up stuff. And then he's like legitimately kind of huge for a guard, like 6'5", strong, lots of wingspan, really great touch. So he can just like power through guys on his drive and touch over them. I mean, he's not like a lead guard because, his handle isn't the best. And the issue is, playing off the ball, he doesn't really know how to do it because he just hasn't done it, and the spot up is shaky. But he's going to be a really dang good offensive, probably like guard complement or secondary. And then like defensively, I think he has legitimate all defense potential. He's so good defending at the nail, stunting and closeouts and rotations. All of the team defense stuff is awesome. And then on the ball, he's made significant strides from being legitimately bad last year to being actually good this year at home. Where again, his size, some of the improved lateral mobility, much improved technique, all of that. I think he's projected as like a pretty good on-ball defender for guards, all things considering. So yeah, I mean, Tillman is just a really, really great prospect.
The concerns I have with Hayes, now I'm big on him as well. I think that the passing is great. I think that he's got significant ability, and we're talking about a class that is a little bit flat and a little bit weak, and I think taking him up the top there is pretty much a no-brainer to me. But the criticisms will come, and people will be listening to this, and they'll be talking. They go, well, what about the fact that he shot 29% from 3? What about the fact that he literally only knows how to use one hand? And I think they're both legitimate concerns. The athleticism worries, I'm not worried about that. I think he's shown tremendous strides there defensively. I think he's going to be really good. There is an issue with the shooting, though there's no doubt about that, those 3-point percentage numbers. But Ben, his 3-point shooting numbers are quite strange in that his catch and shoot numbers are horrible, but his pull-up numbers are really strong, and normally we expect the opposite there.
Yep. Yeah, I'm not concerned in the slightest about Killian shooting, if we're being honest. I mean, ever since he's been first of all, I mean, basically his whole career, he's been a very, very good free throw shooter, which is a strong indicator. His 86 to 89% free throw shooting over 3 or 4 years on high volume, which all those years coupled. And like you said, he's always had the pull up mid range, and you'll pull up mid range, the pull up 18-footer, which in prospects I look at, pull up mid-range proficiency as, an indicator of pull up 3-point shooting improvement. And he's already done it as a prospect. Like, he's already got that pull up three. Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned earlier, the spot up is not great. The footwork's inconsistent, and just general off-ball movement skills and angle understanding is not great. But that's something that is much easier to improve than the pull up and the step back, which he already has. And like, people, I think, generally are way too caught up in percentage, and way too caught up in efficiency rather than looking at volume and context. Whereas if you're taking a lot of difficult threes, you don't need to be shooting 37% on those. Obviously, if you are, then you're one of the best shooters in the world. But if you're shooting 32% on 8 difficult threes a game, then that's what Luka Doncic is doing. And I don't think anybody talks about him as a non-shooter, because he pulls defenses with those shots. And I think Killian Hayes can be that. I mean, I think his efficiency is going to be just fine as he matures and as he grows as a shooter. So my concerns for his shooting are not, like, almost none. For the left-hand dominance, I think that's definitely more real. The concern there is more real. I mean, Killian, yeah, you're right. Like his coach, Jaka Lakovic, was awesome, scheming him left to just take advantage of left-hand passing and dribbling. But yeah, the right-hand passing leaves a lot to be desired. I think that he's probably never going to be like a great right-hand passer, but he can also exist without it. Like, James Harden is not a good right-hand passer. Like, teams will force him left, or force him right to take away, to force him make that right-hand skip pass to the left corner, which he's just not great at. I don't think Killian's ever going to be great as a righty passer, but I don't think he has to be. Like, maybe that'll keep him from like the top of passers in the NBA. But to be a very good passer, I think that would be, I think it's going to be fine. But that is like a legitimate concern, I think.
The next guy that we had on your list here of guys that you're higher on is Tyrese Maxey, and he's a hard one for me to grasp, because in general, when I look at prospects coming out of Kentucky, I tend to give a benefit of the doubt. Now, sometimes that can bite you on the ass when that prospect's name is Kevin Knox, but other times it works out pretty well when we look at these guys who underperform and we don't really know where they fit. And you go, well, what do they do? And then other areas of their game come out of nowhere. Devin Booker, Tyler Hero, Bam Adebayo, Karl Anthony Towns. There's so many of these guys that just develop in areas that you don't necessarily or haven't really seen in college. And that's a little bit where I am with Maxey. He averaged 14 points per game. He averaged 3 assists. He shot, again, 29% from 3, but was a really good free throw shooter. Is he a point guard? Is he a shooting guard? Where are we talking with him? Because go back and forth. Is he a player that you take at close to number 10? Is he a guy that's at the back end of the teens? Can he be a top 5 player in this class at some point? I'm really torn with Maxey because I just don't know how to pass through that college information.
Yeah, I love Maxey. I've had him like in my top 5 or 6, since before the high school season, and I haven't really wavered on that, despite what we see at Kentucky. I think some of it is, Kentucky being Kentucky. Like, it's not just like Kentucky. It's not just like players magically underperform at Kentucky because of no reason. Like Tyrese Maxey played like an off-ball movement role that he's never played in his entire life. Like he's talked about having to, like, how adjusting to playing off the ball is hard because he's played on the ball his entire life. So I mean, like, and again, the main criticism you'll hear, like the low 3-point percentage, but that's on a sample of 113 shots, which is so far from stable. And all of the other indicators, like you said, the free throw percentage, the mid-range pull-ups, the volume of threes, the shot versatility, his elite touch on runners. Like, I have no real concerns about his shot. The only real concrete concern I have is the super low release, which, yes, I think is an issue, but it's also a fixable issue. And then you'll see like the assist number, which I think is legitimate. I think his biggest real concerns are that playmaking, where he's never going to be like a pick and roll operator. He's just not that type of passer. And then the self creation and isolation, where he's not crafty in the pick and roll, and his raw handle and shift isn't that great. But where he is, a legitimate 3-level scoring guard, I think the shooting's be fine. The pull-up mid-range is awesome. The floater is awesome. I think he's going to be an awesome guard finisher due to his burst and decisiveness, attacking off the catch or off a secondary action. His strength and touch and balance as a finisher, all of it's so good to me. I don't really have a lot of worries about his offense long term. And then defensively, I'm a big fan on both ends. The low steal and block, yes, I think he's a much better team defender than those numbers would suggest. If you know when you watch the tape and see what he does on a play-to-play basis, that's not as flashy. And then on the ball, he's strong, moves well, fairly long. Maxey is like not like I guess like a point guard is I wouldn't say point guard, not like a primary initiator, like not a player who I think you can run your offense through, which definitely does limit his top end upside. But I think that's okay because there's almost none of those guys in this draft and not very many in most drafts. So I think if you're drafting Maxey to a team that has like a big creator like the Celtics or the Suns or the Pelicans or the Mavs or something with the expectation that he's going to be like a secondary combo two guard, then I think that's great. And I think that's worth like a top 5 value in this class.
Yeah, that's all going to be dependent on what team. So that might be top 5 value, but when you look at those teams up the top, maybe they don't need that sort of a player. But yeah, he could work with a lot of different guys. I've consistently had him in that sort of 10 to 14 range in most of my mock drafts.
Yeah, that seems like where he's going to go.
Whether it's Orlando or it's the Pelicans, it's one of those guys who can sort of run with the ball and without the ball and be a finisher and not be required to have that sort of burst to push into the paint. But finding his right spot has been tough to me. And again, I don't think there's any worry about him being a top 5 guy. I think there's a real chance of that, but I just don't know with so many of these guys, and he's one of the more confusing ones to me. Now, a guy that I don't feel all that confused on, and you seem to be agreeing with me here, in players that you're a little bit lower on than others, is Obi Toppin out of Dayton, the 6'9" power forward. 20 points per game, a guy that I've highlighted my concerns with him on the podcast before. We talked about him a couple of days ago, if I just don't remember how long ago that was, but we did talk about him as a player with Spencer Perlman the other day, talking about how that he was down on Obi as a prospect. So give us your take on Obi. Is he, if you hear him as a top 5 guy, I honestly don't believe that at all. Like, how far down are you on Obi? Is it out the top 10, out of the lottery? Is his defense that much of a concern?
He's like a borderline lottery guy to me. Like I said, I'm quite down on him relative to consensus. I probably have a similar Obi take than Spencer does. Just like you said, like the defense is so concerning to me. Like he cannot move with his high hips, high center of gravity, slow feet. So that means you can't play him at the 4 because you can't guard the perimeter. You can't play him at the 5 because he can't defend the pick and roll. He's too slow in back pedal and drop coverage. He can't. Hedging is probably his only hope, but even that might be a struggle. And then switching is obviously off the table. Post defense, he's going to get shoved around because of the high center of gravity. So all he really does is like weak side rim protection, which I think he can be okay at because he's a very high leaper. As we see with the open floor dunks and stuff. But the issue with that is he needs a runway to explode and get as high as he can. And dunking in transition or as a roll man, that works. But when you have to like load quickly to make a rotation and get a block or a contest, like he doesn't load quickly enough. So that's the question. Like, who do you pair with him on defense to like try to compensate for him? Like prime Draymond, like Bam. Like, there's not that many players in the league that I think are legitimate compliments to Obi. The offense is obviously very, very good. That's indisputable. But the issue with this offense, I think, is that it's fundamentally complementary. He's not like a big man who I think you can really run your offense through. And that's like not really a slight at Obi because there's almost none of those big men kind of exist in the NBA. Like you have Giannis, you have Towns, Jokic, Embiid. That's kind of it when it comes to like big men who you can really run your offense through. And I guess like maybe even Anthony Davis, but he's I think still more fundamentally complementary when it comes to his offense. At least at his peak. And then you get down to but so Obi's fundamentally complementary. I think it could be like an elite complementary big because the passing I think is very elite for big man, short roll, post passing. The finishing off of the roll, off of some drives even out of the post with his touch finishing with both hands and the strength, the explosion and the contortion, all that's great. And then I think he's going to shoot spot ups just fine. I don't buy any of the real off dribble creation with him. But I think the spot up shooting is be fine. So yeah, like I said, he could be an awesome complementary big man. But just thinking about like the value, like how do you build a team with Obi Toppin in mind? Because you have to have like another offensive engine, and you have to have a big man complement. It's just so tough from a team building standpoint that it's not worth to me to invest in him highly. I think he could be like a really good like microwave scoring big man. Again, like complementary offense, but I just struggle a lot with Obi, and that doesn't even take into account that like he's already really old. Like Obi's already 22 years old. Like he's senior aged.
He's going to be 23
like
6 weeks into the season.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he turns 23 in March. Like he's really old. So
the other thing,
I just worry a lot about Obi.
The other worry I have, like the shooting numbers, like the 3-point shooting numbers, are strong. 42% over his college career, but it's 100 attempts. Right, he took 230 free throw attempts and barely grazed 70% there. So there's a little bit of a disconnect in those two numbers to me. If he's a high 30s, low 40s 3-point shooter, that's obviously really, really strong. And you see guys like Ryan Anderson, a guy that survived in the NBA for a long time just being a 3-point shooter. Now, obviously, Obi has the edge there in terms of athleticism and finishing, but is that 3-point shooting real? Because it's hard to make a gauge on 100 attempts, exactly. Especially when you're a 70% free throw shooter on more than double those attempts.
Which is why it's just like almost never smart to really value 3-point percentage. I don't think Obi's going to be that good of a shooter. Like, definitely not. I think he's going to be, like I said, fine enough, like 34, 36% range, which for his role, I think is okay. Like, that's enough. Like you said, like the free throw shooting isn't great. The 3-point volume, is not great. I think the encouraging things are, his touch is clearly really good, which I think that kind of translates a little bit in terms of like the shortish mid-range jumpers, but that's just like those aren't really there. He just like doesn't really shoot off dribble jumpers that are like legitimate jumpers. Like he has some like post floatery types that maybe get classified as off dribble jumpers that really aren't. But yeah, I mean, like I said, like I'm not like crazy confident in the shot being really good, and that's why I don't buy his self creation as anything special, because like I don't think he's going to be an exceptional shooter. I think he'll be like a fine shooter, but like nothing crazy.
Let's talk about potential exceptional shooters, and that's Aaron Nesmith from Vanderbilt, a guy that you are a bit more down on. Now, when you look at the raw shooting numbers from him, it's ludicrous. 52% 3-point percentage last season on over 8 attempts per game. He attempted 115 threes in 14 games, but it's 14 games. Now, he's taken almost 300 3-point attempts over his career and shot him at 41%. There's obviously no way the 52% shooting from Nesmith is real. Just if those, because we haven't talked about him yet, he's 21 years of age. He's a 6'6" wing out of Vanderbilt, played 2 years in college. That number really does stand out. He averaged 23 points per game in those 14 games, 36 minutes a night. But why are you down on him? He's a guy that's sort of getting mocked in the teens. Dallas is a popular location that he's going to. I had him going to Brooklyn. You've seen maybe slide to the Bucks later on. Why are you down on him as a prospect? Because on the surface, you look at a guy, man, this is even if you say a 40% 3-point shooter as a wing, like that's valuable. So why are you down on him?
Yeah, I don't doubt that he's going to be a great shooter. Like obviously not 50%. Like that's totally ridiculous. He shot 33% last year on 175 attempts. I think like 40-ish% is probably like 38-40% probably where he levels out. So I don't have worry about the shooting, but I think I just like don't like anything else he does. And he isn't even really a good off dribble shooter. Not only that he doesn't have the handle or like the explosiveness to create space, he just like the shot isn't mechanically great, and he's just not comfortable making or taking them. I don't think he's a good passer. I don't think he's going to be a good slasher. Defensively, I've got my worries as well. His movement to me is a little wonky, and like I think he's going to be a fine defender because he's like 6'6" and tries, but nothing special. I don't think he's a wing stopper. More of like a team defense guy, and even that's unexceptional because of his processing speed to me. I just like offensively, like I think he gets billed as like a plug and play 3-and-D wing, when I don't think that's what he is. Because I think in order like he can be a guy who you just like spot up in the corner, and then like defense he just survives. But that's a waste of his skill set. Where Nesmith Nesmith, like the reason you're going to draft him high is because he's an elite movement shooter, and you are going to use him like Duncan Robinson to get the most out of him. Like he's not going to be as good as Duncan Robinson at shooting and at passing and decision making, where Robinson's an awesome decision maker, and I think Nesmith is pretty bad there. But like you want him bombing off of movement, and that's I think how you extract the most value from him, because I don't think he has the the ancillary skills, the decision making, the dribbling, the passing, to really be like that effective as a spot up shooter beyond shooting. So I just have like a lot of concerns of like what he's going to bring, or like how much the team is going to be willing to commit to maximizing him. Like let's say you like send him to Dallas, like yes, so, like he'll be like an awesome, like if you just want to like throw on the wing or the corner and let Luka create open shots for him, he's gonna hit those, no doubt. But like, why not just take someone like Justinian Jessup or Jake Toulson undrafted to do the same thing? If you're not gonna like, because I don't think a team that has Luka Doncic is gonna want to waste a lot of possessions, drawing up plays for Nesmith. Like that's where my issue comes with Nesmith. Like, just I think you have to use him pretty specifically to get the most out of him. And even if you do, I'm not really sure it's worth it. So, I mean, I think he's a fine prospect. Like, I still think he's a first rounder. And like for some of the teams like Milwaukee, Brooklyn, like Dallas, I'd understand if they took him, but just not my favorite prospect in the world.
His assist numbers are comically low. 13 assists in 14 games is unbelievably low.
Yeah,
his assist to turnover ratio of 0.5 is...
Yeah, it's really not good.
It's unbelievably low. And that points to what you said about decision making and what he's doing when the ball is in his hands. And that is, okay, get the ball, catch and shoot, movement shots, whatever. But if you have to make any sort of decision, then what do you do? Because those numbers, they're very, very far from encouraging. The shooting is intriguing, and he hit 4.3 threes a game. That is a huge number.
I mean,
for anybody.
No doubt he's going to be a good shooter. Like, I absolutely like.
It's just you got to find something else that you can do, because if the shot doesn't go in and if you're not using the right way, and he's not going to get 26% usage, which is what he had at Vanderbilt, that's just not going to happen in the NBA. So there, where that value lies. Now, again, he can be pretty good in that role, but it's very team dependent. And that's really a comment that we can make about a bunch of guys in this draft class. Now, a couple of more players just to finish things off. Here, Payton Pritchard, a point guard from Oregon. He's 6'2", 22 years of age. He averaged a bit over 20 points per game this season, shot really strong, 42% on almost 7 attempts from 3. Averaged 5.5 assists, a pretty consensus, I guess, early second round sort of a point guard. Do you have a different opinion on where he should be valued?
Yeah, I don't particularly like Payton Pritchard. I've got him like outside of my top 60. I mean, I would understand why a team drafted him, because I think there's like a chance he's a pretty okay backup. But it's just, I think the threshold like to be a differentiable backup point guard in the league is really high. Like there's so like being a small guard in the NBA is really hard. Like. And like the good backups are really valuable, but I'm just like not super convinced Pritchard is that. Like, no doubt he's a great shooter, like absolutely like awesome shooter. But like beyond that, and like some like definitely a good passer, like quite good. But beyond that, I'm like just not crazy sold on like what else? Because like I'm not sold on his ability to get to the rim or finish. I think the decision making isn't as good as it needs to be. Like it's good, but I think it for his role, like he has to be better. And then defensively, I just think he's atrocious. The effort levels, the athletic deficiency that he's going to see at high levels. He's like kind of like a microwave spark plug to me. And I think generally you can find better ones, but I think Pritchard like definitely could be a good shooter to like find a backup point guard role and stick. And if there's like really backup point guard needy teams that want to take him at some point in the second, like I think that's okay. Like I wouldn't really begrudge a team for doing that. But like I think it's more likely to me that he like ends up as either like a fringe rotation guy or like a really good Euro guard, which isn't a slight. Like that's like, that's good money and a good career. But I just like don't really see him as like a high level backup, or I mean definitely don't see him as a starter, but like or even as like a high end backup, which is like again those are valuable, but I think harder to find than people give credit for.
He's a player that was a 4-year starter at Oregon, and the last 3 seasons he played over 35 minutes per game. But I always have a level of caution when I see a player really take that step up in their senior year. It wasn't like the minutes necessarily jumped, like he was playing the same sort of minutes in his sophomore and junior year. His PER went from 17 in both of those seasons up to almost 28 last season, doing it as a 22-year-old. So that is always a level of concern to me, where it takes you that long to be 3 years older than your competition in a college environment.
Like you're
to really
supposed
step
to be
up.
like dominant,
Yes.
at this age, and it's like a concern if you're not, and it's like okay if you're. It's like Obi Toppin, like at 22 years old, like he's supposed to be dominant. Like it's like that's the expectation.
Yeah, exactly. Look, we expect you to take on this role and to be able to perform at this level, and you did it. So congratulations. But that doesn't necessarily mean all of a sudden you are this great prospect, because you were getting this playing time 2 years ago, but not really on the radar at all. Now, another guy who's a little bit older, whose numbers absolutely jump off the page to me, that's Paul Reed, the 6'9" power forward from DePaul. He's 21 years of age, and it's the defensive numbers that really should get you interested, or at least make you intrigued. 2.6 blocks, 1.9 steals, 15 points per game, only 31% shooting from 3 after shooting 41% the year before, or obviously really low attempts there. Where are you with Reed? Because I've sort of been up and down with Reed in terms of, is he a late first, is he a second round guy? Because those defensive numbers are interesting, and I'm not really sure where to place him at this point.
Yeah, Reed is like pretty divisive, I find. People, like you said, are kind of all over the place on him. I lean negative generally, because my main worry is just thinking, like, what does he do on offense? Because the shot is certainly not very good. Not beyond the mechanics, like the volume, the efficiency, the free throw isn't spectacular. Like, I just have a lot of worries about the shot. And even beyond that, like, there's like a little bit of passing and dribbling at this stage, but I think that's mostly non-functional when it comes to the NBA. He's got some coordination, so maybe the skills improve. But like, I don't really think that's real. And then, like, if you're playing him as like a small 5, I don't think he's like big enough or a good enough finisher really to be consistent there. But there is like a little bit of like handling and creation. So, and the coordination's real. So maybe, and then obviously, defensively is where the intrigue comes, where he's like as good of a defensive playmaker as they come, like 9.5 block, 3.5 steal. That's ridiculous. There is some like legitimately awesome rotational playmaking, rotating for blocks, jumping passing lanes for steals. But like, I think it's kind of very erratic to me. Like he kind of is like a lot of tools and instinct, and just like doesn't really think. And I think that gets him burned a lot in college, and it's going to get him burned like even more in the NBA when teams are and decision makers are better, and athletes are better, and all the players are faster. Where I think that the lack of defensive control and play to play consistency of the of his defensive goodness is not as high. Like, I certainly think he's like a prospect, like obviously a defense first prospect that has some real upside with his coordination and movement skill and the playmaking. But like, I question like how good he really is there, because like I said, he's really, like, I think not as far along technically and like in terms of feel on defense as you want someone who's like 21 already. So yeah, I mean, I'm not crazy on Paul Reed, just mostly offensive concerns. Though I do think he's like a very interesting like flyer in the second round. Like, I definitely would take him like mid-late second for a team, and even if a team took him a little earlier, like, I get it. Like, I have worries about like where he fits in the league, but there's certainly like really valuable skills and traits that make him worth a kind of pick in the second round. Like, I'd much rather have him than someone like Pritchard, who I think, Pritchard is like, I think there's probably a chance that he's a better like NBA player than Reed, but he doesn't really have any upside. Whereas like Reed is the type of guy I want to take a flyer on like mid-late second, or even on a 2-way if he goes undrafted. Just someone who I think has a pretty low floor, but also much more of a ceiling than someone like Payton Pritchard. So yeah, I mean, not crazy about Reed, but I definitely understand why people like it.
The the comparison that has been in my head at times, and this is, I think some of it's because his name's Paul, and that is Paul Millsap, who was a second-round pick who wasn't a shooter, and then developed into a reliable three-point shooter, but brought some really good defensive presence. Now, that's obviously a really high bar as a multi-time All-Star to get to that level, but if he could develop into having that level of shot, and it took Millsap years to get to that level, but having the defensive prowess and then having that part of your offensive game, I think that is at least worth taking that flyer on. I had him in that between that late first, early second type area, but mainly just on that. I hope that something develops offensively, but the defensive stuff is really intriguing to me. But that's absolute best case scenario, most unlikely to happen, but best case scenario if he could get some sort of shot going and work into that sort of a player like Millsap was as a second round pick for the Utah Jazz.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. I mean, I think it's a little optimistic for my case.
It is,
like, just. Yeah, I mean, I tend to be like cautious with comparisons, just because partly because I don't like I know about Paul Millsap, like I don't know about like the intimacies of Paul Millsap in college or the intricacies of Paul Millsap as a college prospect and as an early career player and as a later career player. I mean, Paul Millsap's also like one of the strongest dudes in the league too, like, and Reed is frail. Obviously, Reed could add strength, but it's something that you're going to have to work on. Just another thing you have to work on it with Reed. But yeah, I mean, I think Reed, the shot is probably the main thing to look for. Because if he can shoot, then I think he can stick. So.
All right. Well, that'll do it for the prospects that we're going to talk about today. Ben, thank you for coming on. And guys, check out Ben's podcast, Prep2Pro podcast. Ben, what's going on your show at the moment?
Yeah, like you said, I am the co-host of the Prep2Pro pod with Max Carlin. Have 1, 2, 3, 4 episodes a week nowadays with the draft coming out. Just ramping up content production ahead of the draft, and then right after the draft, we are moving straight into 2021 talking college basketball because we have no break between the draft and college basketball. So we're pumping out content. Also, we'd like to promote our live draft show. So if for whatever reason you wouldn't want to watch the ESPN or whatever draft broadcast you have and consume on TV normally, Max and I will be live on Twitch on draft night during the draft, giving live reactions, live analysis, bringing on guests, maybe answering questions, maybe even playing some clips, making it as pretty and as professional as we can. But if you want to just come stop by, listen to what we have to say about the draft, and then follow along with us, that's going to be happening on the draft night. And we'll tweet updates about that and keep everyone posted. But yeah, that's what's going on with the pod. So
go and check out at the pod. Max is going to be on this show next week as well to talk about some of his favorite prospects. Ben, thanks for coming on. Of course. Thank you for having me. All right, that'll do it for today's podcast, guys. Don't forget, subscribe, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube. Give me a thumbs up in the comments below. Give it 5 stars on Apple Podcasts as well, guys. We are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.